last time we saw the context of the Gita and what led Arjuna to ask for this knowledge. Okay? What he was asking for was two things. One is, what should I do in this situation? Because as we saw, that he analyzed the problem not only in terms of I have to fight my cousins, but he also then saw that so many other soldiers were going to be killed. Then after the war, the children and the wives will be like without their husbands, and the confusion that it can create in the society. So that was the third reason he gave. And the fourth reason he gave was, now if I'm responsible for all these actions, then imagine the results for me, that results that will accrue to me. Okay? So this is something that was too big, and therefore he said that he did not want to fight. Okay? He first said he did not want to fight, but then he said something much more, and then he said that not only I don't want to fight, but there is one thing which is very clear to me, that the sense of sorrow that I have, okay, I don't see any solution. How to get rid of it? Okay? Why? If I lose or I gain, in both cases, I will be unhappy. Okay? So this is what he says now, that he understood one thing, that the sense of lack, the sense of sorrow, the sense of feeling of some inadequacy in the sense that everything is not in its place, that is something that no matter what you achieve in life, you can't get rid of. So that's when he told him that I am your Shishya, you teach me that knowledge which will help me to completely get rid of this sense of limitation that I have. Okay? So this is the time that the teaching starts. Okay? The teaching starts when you recognize that all these accomplishments, Arjuna was not an ordinary person. Okay? He was highly accomplished. He was very versatile also. It was not that he was only one track, he knew one thing and he didn't know anything else. Okay? He was absolutely brilliant. He excelled in everything that he did. And this person at this stage of his life realizes that all that he has accomplished, he is an outstanding human being. Most of the people would envy him. Okay? And in spite of that, there is something which is sense of sorrow, okay, that he cannot get rid of. And he starts asking Lord Krishna for that knowledge which will free him from this sense of limitation. And only when you ask for it, the teaching begins. Otherwise, Lord Krishna knew Arjuna for a very long time. He had no need to teach. Okay? He didn't tell Arjuna, come, I have the knowledge of what the reality is, come, I will come and I will teach you that. No. Okay? Every teacher is like that. The teacher of physics is like that. Okay? He or she knows amazing things about the nature of the universe. But you have to be interested, and you have to enroll in the university, and you have to learn. Okay? So here we are not preachers. Lord Krishna was not a preacher, he was a teacher. Teacher means you have to be a student and you have to come and ask for this knowledge. Okay? So what is the first verse of the teaching? It starts with, it says, Ashojananvashojasvam prajnavatamscha bhashase gatasuna gatasunscha nanushojanti panditaha. Okay? Panditaha na anushojanti. Okay? Panditas, they don't grieve. Okay? For what? Gatasuna agatasunscha. For people who are living and people who are gone. Okay? Panditas don't grieve. Okay? And this is what he says, Prajna Vadamsha Bhashase Ashochananda Shochastvam. Okay? Something which doesn't deserve to be grieved for that you have a grief. Okay? The wise people don't grieve. Okay? And that he says, but You speak as though you're a wise person. Prajna vadamscha iva bhashase. Okay? Why is he as though speaking as a wise person? Because he's even at the time of crisis, he's able to analyze the situation so well. Okay? When Duryodhana was looking at the army of the the opponent, what was Duryodhana's response? How to kill them all to the best of their ability, the best strategy to kill them all. He goes to Dronacharya because he understands that Bhishma is a person of resolve. Bhishma, once he has taken a vow, he will not swerve. But Dronacharya, he knew very well that he had soft corner for Arjuna. Okay? And he wanted Dronacharya to give his best in the war, so he goes to back him up so that he actually gives his best to the war. Okay? So that was the response of Duryodhana, and Arjuna's response was completely different. Okay? He saw the implication of his action on so many different individuals. Okay? So therefore he says you are as though a wise person, but if you were really a wise person, if you were a Pandita, then there is what? No room for sorrow for the person who knows the reality. So that is a huge statement to make. Okay? Because in this hour of crisis when you have to fight your own cousins, and if you have to kill so many people, okay, and if you still are not overcome by sorrow, then that must be what? A lot of wisdom. That wisdom is not an advice that no matter what happens in your life, you have to be what? Just the same. It's not an advice. It is what you understand of the reality that makes you respond to situations what in an effective manner. So what is it that you need to understand to become a wise person? That is said in the next verse. Okay? So here is something which is where the real crux of the teaching of Gita is revealed. It says, Lord Krishna says, Latve vaham chatunasam latvam dehe janadipaha nadivana bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatav param. Okay? Here he says that there was never a time I did not exist, neither you nor these kings, nor will any one of us cease to exist in the future. Okay? This is a very big statement. Initially he says there was never a time that I was not. Okay? So you may think that he is Lord Krishna, so therefore he is different from all of us. Okay? But immediately he says there was never a time that you did not exist either. It's not that I am somebody special and you are somebody who is not so special, so you are subject to death. Okay? And not because you are somebody special, therefore you have no death, but anybody else here. Okay? There was never a time that they were not, and there was never a time that they will cease to be. That is something which is huge. Okay? How is it possible? Because if I ask you, all of us know, okay, that what? Arjuna probably had a birth date and he is no longer with us right now. Each one of us has a birth date and then we go. Even Lord Krishna was born, if he was there, he was born and then he is no longer among us. Okay? So how can you make this statement that there was never a time that I was not, and there is never a time that I will not be? Okay? So therefore, we have to understand that what is then this I that we are talking about. Okay? There is no doubt that the body is something which was born and the body is going to go. And we are not contending. Nobody can stretch the existence of the body. Okay? Along with the body is your mind and all your faculties. They have a finite existence. Okay? In infinite flow of time, your life of, let's say, at the most 100 years, okay, even if you live a full life of 100 years, what is it compared to the countless flow of time? It is just insignificant. And not only that, while you are living, okay, your place in the vast scheme of things in the universe, what is it? The body. It's just, you can't even, if you put a kind of a map of the universe, even a speck is something which is too big. Even Earth will be like a speck. Okay? So if you are as good as the body and mind, there is no way that what Lord Krishna says makes sense. But what if you are much more than the body and the mind? So this is where the teaching starts. Okay? Who am I? What is my real nature? It is not something that you just have to accept the word of Lord Krishna and somehow have some concept that, oh, Atma is Amar. We all say that without understanding what exactly it means. So Lord Krishna, being the teacher, he teaches what is the nature of Atma. It's not just one sentence that you have to mug up, right? Or just have to repeat because it is written in Gita. It is something, Atma means I, it is available for you to understand clearly here and now. Okay? So this is where the inquiry begins. Okay? If I ask you who you are, what would you say?
I mean, as your name or something.
Exactly.
You
You would say your name, then you would, what if I ask you to describe yourself a little bit more?
Then you
right?
go further about
Then you
what
say-
you do, what you.
Exactly. Right? What you do, then you think you're a male or female, or you're this many years old, you're tall, you're fair, you're whatever, right? You're a professor. So this is how one basically describes oneself. Okay? So I, for everyone, is related to, the sense of I is related to what? One given body, mind, sense complex. Okay? So how valid is this conclusion? Okay? That is something that you have to examine. Okay? In order to examine that, we have a methodology which is called Druk and Drishya. Druk is the seer and Drishya is the seen. Okay? So the Druk is the seer, the person, the subject. The Druk is the subject. Okay? And Drishya is what? The seen or the object. Okay? So therefore, when I ask you to describe Preeti who you are, you don't describe yourself as the table there or that chair over there, right? It's very clear to you that it is an object and you are the subject, right? So up to here, you have, even though it's very close to you, you don't mistake it for I. Even the clothes which are very close to you, do you mistake them for the eyes, for the eye? No, right? So that means that it can be very close, but still what? The knowledge of what is object is absolutely clear to you. You don't get confused. Okay? Now, with reference to the body, okay, is it the subject or is it the object? You have to ask this question. Okay? If the body is the subject, okay, then who is the seer? Exactly. Who is the? There is a seer, okay, that observes different conditions of the body. The body, from the time of the birth, it has undergone so many changes. Okay? If you were the body, you would not have observed all the changes. You are the same. Okay? In fact, what? When you were young, or your height keeps on changing, constantly there is a change. Okay? The faculties that you enjoy keep on undergoing change. Okay? One day you lose weight, next day you gain weight. All these different conditions keep changing all the time. Who are you? Okay? You are the observer. And what is the body? Body is the observed. Body is an object. Okay? In fact, if you know a little bit of science, then you can know that this body is nothing but cells. Okay? Cells. Right? And the cells are actually what? They keep on changing all the time. At cellular level, there is constant change. Even though it seems like one stable body, okay, the things change all the
Every
time.
cell
In-
dies after.
Yeah, every cell dies. Okay, and you are very much present. Okay, and in the coming and going of all the different cells. Okay. Now, in fact, every 12 years, the body has completely got rid of all the cells, okay, and new cells. Okay. So this is why when somebody becomes a vegetarian, they say after 12 years, the cell has become vegetarian of a body which is vegetarian, because all the cells are totally reset, right? So this is where you see that each cell is coming and going. There is an amazing design which makes it happen. There is no doubt about it. Okay, but your relationship with the body is nothing but cells. Cells come and go. So that is what it comes within what drishya, the object. What is the mistake we make? We take it as druk. Exactly. Right? We take it as a subject. Actually, it is an object. So there is a mistake. And that mistake is something which is universally done. That's why it becomes a norm. It becomes a reality for everyone. Okay? But because it is universal doesn't mean that it is true. Okay? So therefore, the body is not something which is I. Again, you can say one more thing. And you can say, if one cell, you don't have any doubt that it is not I, you can actually put it under a microscope and you can see it. Okay? Then all the different cells coming together, all non-I's coming together, how can it become I? Okay? One object plus another object which is cell, then another object which is cell. All the
They are
different
all
objects add up. They don't become subject. They remain object.
Cluster of objects.
Cluster of objects.
They cannot be
They cannot become subject, right? All the different objects don't become subject, right? They become cluster of objects. Okay. So therefore, this body, which is limited, there is no doubt about it. Okay. The mistake is not that you're not trying to prolong the body, you're trying to make it something which is never born and never died. That would be a delusion. Okay? We are only inquiring about what is our conclusion with reference to the body that we have. There is no doubt that we have special relationship with only one body. Okay? So I only, when I have stomach ache, you don't have stomach ache. Okay? So when what is my given state of mind is not what you enjoy. Okay? So therefore, there is no doubt that I have a special relationship with this body. Okay? But because I have a special relationship with this body, it does not mean I am as good as the body. We are not denying that you have a special relationship with my body. Okay? Just like among all the houses, Ratika has this house, which is her place. But because she has a special relationship with one house, the house doesn't become her. Okay? So this is something that we need to understand, that the body is finite. It is born, it exists for a certain length of time. While existing, it constantly keeps on changing. Okay? and one day it will cease to exist. Nobody can avoid that. But I am as good as the body is your conclusion, which is what? You are taking on the attributes of limited body and then you conclude what? I am limited. Body is limited, true. But I am limited is your conclusion because of your identification. Right? Now, what is the second thing that we think that who I think I am? Okay, which is with reference to the capacity of my senses. Okay, when people make the statement that what I can't hear or I can't see or all these different my smelling is really good, my sense of smell. So what exactly now my sense of I not only gets connected to the physical body and to the
Sukshma
senses, exactly. This is what we call sukshma. Okay? What is sukshma? It's very good, Pallavi brought this word sukshma. Okay? Sukshma means subtle. Okay? Subtle. Okay? Now what is subtle? Okay, people imagine some subtle thing, right? It's very easy. There is this physical eye that I can see, okay? But I have no idea how much you can see with these eyes. So that's why with reference to me, it is subtle because I cannot, right? When you go to an ophthalmologist, okay, he has to rely on what you are telling about, right?
And you are
About
always
vision.
worried. You are always
Yeah. Because he will
That's
keep
the
on
thing,
putting,
you know,
yeah, he has no access. He only has to rely on what you are
What
saying.
you say.
Yeah, on what you say.
And you many times wonder whether this is better or that.
Which lens?
Exactly, which lens to use. Yeah, because they keep on showing it. They say, oh yeah, that's true. Is this better or is that better, right? So that means that even with reference to an expert of the eye, that is something that only you know. Only you have to give him data and he can only infer based on the data that you provide. Right? So this is something which is what we call the capacity of senses. The capacity of senses themselves are subtle, I say, because anybody else has no access. Only you can see. Okay? Even though they are subtle, okay, can you say I am as good as what? My sense organs. Can you say that? No. Why? Because they are changing all the time. Okay? The capacity of eyes is something which is variable from the time of the birth, okay, till now, right? People who are not born with what? The glasses, by the time you are 40, 42, what? Everybody starts wearing reading glasses. Okay? So all the different conditions of your senses is something which is known to you. Okay? If you were these senses, then who would be the knower who comes to know the varying capacities of the senses? There has to be one which observes all the different conditions to say that now I have glasses. Before I saw really well, I had 20/20 vision. Okay? So this is something which is changing and therefore again there is a mistake. What is a mistake? What is the drishya, what is the nature of the scene is taken as what? The attribute of drik. Okay? Is here. So that means there is just a cognitive mistake because of the placement of, right, the eye with reference to one given body mind sense complex. So all the capacity of your senses which are subtle, they are also changing and I am the observer of all the changes which are taking place. Whatever is observed cannot be the characteristic of the observer. Logic. Okay. Now, where is the third, which is a very big identification that we have? One is the physical body, the second is the senses, and the third biggest identification we have is with reference to what? Exactly, your mind. Okay, the mind is something when you say, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm intelligent, okay, or I am generous, or I'm saintly, let's say, I'm compassionate. Okay? All these characteristics that I attribute on the I, okay, are they my characteristics or not? This mind, where in fact, if you ask what exactly is the mind, what is the mind? There is one thing which is a physical brain, right, with all these electric chemical connections, neurons, ticking and everything, which is all physical, part of the physical brain. Okay? But there is a subtle thing. Just as the senses, there is a physical eye, and then there is a subtle, which is the capacity of eyes to see. Here also there is a physical brain, and then there is a capacity of brain, different brains here, right? The two operate, and each one has a different talent, okay?
Or
Has
the
a
way you
different
think.
characteristic.
The way you use your brain or the way you think.
Exactly. So as Preeti says, what exactly is this antakarana that we talk about in Sanskrit? Okay, is what way we think. That is subtle. So that means each one has a different thought process. Okay, you find two people going through the same situation, and you ask them what are they going through. They will have different interpretation of what they are going through. They will have different interpretation of what needs to be done. They will respond differently. So all that is something which is what? Subtle. Subtle, which is based on what? Your thinking. So therefore, mind is actually nothing but series of thoughts. Okay? Series of thoughts in a way that every day, I think Surya, it is Robin Sharma, somebody told me, 60,000 thoughts that you have in every day. So now, what is your relationship with thoughts? Each thought comes and the thought goes. Okay. When the thought comes, are you present or not? Very much. Okay. The thought goes and there is silence, you are very much there. Another thought comes, you're there. If you were not there, right? If you were the thought, when the thought goes, you will go. There will be no entity to recognize what? The going of the thought and coming of another thought. Right? Plus, if you were the thoughts, then what will happen when there is no thought? What happens? You will cease to exist. Every day you are given the experience of 8 hours of no thought.
It was a
No thought, which is what? Deep sleep. Okay? You get rid of all the thoughts. And at the same time, you are there. Even this thinking capacity that we describe, which is our unique capacity, okay, that itself in the dream, what happens? The thinker that you are in the waking, is it exactly the same thinker in the dream? No. You can be actually sitting in Mumbai and in the dream you can be in Paris, or you can be in Italy, or you can be in Greece, and a different character going through a totally different life. So that means the nature of thought is that what? They come and they go. They come and they go. And what is my conclusion? My conclusion is I am, right? When I say I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm intelligent, what is my conclusion? I qualify myself what? With reference to different thoughts which are taking place in my mind. And those and only those thoughts which are happening in waking state. Okay? So this is where I have to recognize what is the relationship between a thought and I. The thought is just like everything else, the thought also is known to me. Okay? The thought comes and goes. Who am I? I'm the seer of every thought. So the thought is not drik swarupa. It is not the characteristic of I. It is the characteristic of what? Something which is drishya. Drishya is an object. Okay. Now you have to know there are two types of drishyas. One is what we call Indriya Pratyaksha and the second is Sakshi Pratyaksha. Okay? Everything that you objectify, there are two types of objectification. In one, for example, I say, what is this object? Let me check. Okay, what is this object? Paper, right? So now how does Pallavi know that this is a paper?
Because I have been told, I have recognized this, that is somewhere stored, that this is paper.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so what happens in this process of knowing, what they say is that there is this paper, what she needs for her eyes, it's called Indriya Pratyaksha. Without the eyes, there is no way to recognize a form. Okay, now the eyes are seeing and they are sending the signals to the brain. Okay, now the brain, in the brain, does the physical paper enter the brain? No, right? What happens is there is a vritti. Vritti is a thought. Okay, now the thought happens that of a paper. The eye send the signal and the thought is that of paper. Then, as Pallavi said, somebody told her earlier that this is paper. Okay? So then she remembers it and then she says this is a paper. Okay? So that means eyes are involved, there is Indriya Pratyaksha. Okay? And then the brain recognizes the signal and knows any given object. Okay? Now, your emotional life is known to you. Do you need your eyes? Do you need your ears? The eyes and ears only provide what? The situation that occurs. Okay? But the emotions that happen, do you need your eyes to recognize the emotions that are happening? No. So this is what we call Sakshi Pratyaksha. Not only you have the ability to observe the things which are external, objects which are external through your sense organs, you also have the capacity to observe your thoughts which are coming and going through what? There is a process in the brain which allows it to what? See the coming and going of different thoughts. Okay? So what does it prove? That the thoughts are not external objects, but they are internal objects. Okay? And who are you? Are you an object? No. You are the subject which comes to know the coming and going of different objects. Okay? So that subject is something which never takes on the characteristic of an object. When I am observing the glass, I don't become glass. when I'm observing a given thought, I don't become that thought. If I had become that thought, then right now, when you're listening to me, okay, all the thoughts that you had thought about from the time of your birth should all be sticking to you.
In a way they do.
Not actively. Otherwise, you would not be able to see any one thing. Because when I see a glass, right, and then when I see Mona, I would not get rid of glass. I would continue to see glass and I would superimpose Mona on it. Okay. Then when I see Pallavi, I would have glass, Mona, and Pallavi. You see what I mean? It will just go on accumulating. The very fact that you can have one observation and exclude all the other observation, it means that you are free from that. You have a faculty which is memory. That is a different thing. Okay? But right now, your awareness is not loaded with anything. If it was your nature, right? If it was your nature, there was no way to get rid of it. Okay? But the point that you are making actually comes to another thing which is extremely important. Okay? Even though mind is nothing but many different thoughts, why do we have such a sense of I in this mind? Can I close it? It's
Yes,
freezing.
even I feel extremely
Yeah,
cold.
I'm
I
feeling
frozen
like
once and
extremely
I thought I
cold.
think
Yeah. Okay.
So thoughts go away and whatever we have, when that thought comes again, that means that is in memory which comes back.
So now I will explain. First, let's explain now what is this different kinds of thoughts that we have and why we have such an identification with this entity. First, we'll understand that, and then I will go to then what exactly is the nature of I. Because what happens is, if I start talking about what is the nature of I, and your sense of I is here, okay, then there is a mix-up. So the whole methodology is, wherever you make a mistake, I first have to show you what you are not, then I have to show you what you are, right? So this is how the whole teaching, there is a whole teaching methodology, okay? You don't just make statements, you lead the person to discover things. So that's why when I'm using words, I'm not giving a lecture, I'm not just giving some kind of a things from my mind. I'm using the methodology to make what? Gita, whatever it is saying, make you see what it says. I'm not adding anything of my own. It's not my opinions. Okay? So this is where, just step by step. Okay? So, these thoughts that we have, why do we have such a sense of I in the thought, the thoughts that we have? Why? Because these thoughts are not just random. If they were totally random, one after the other and this and that, then you will have no problem. You can just say, okay, now this is just something that I observe. These thoughts are extremely well designed, okay, and there are of they perform 4 different major functions, okay. So the whole faculty that we have, inner faculty, in Sanskrit it is called Antahkarana. Antahkarana means, Karana is an instrument, but it is an inner instrument which enables you to process things. Okay? Now this Antahkarana has 4 different types of functions. What are the different types of functions? One is what we call Manas. Manas is the place where the emotions take place. Okay, so that means I'm observing something, but it can invoke, sometimes I observe some painting and it can invoke in me some memories and I start laughing or crying, right? So that means there is an observance, but there is an interpretation that is happening in the mind which produces a certain emotion, which may be very unique to me. When Jagdish sees that painting, he may not have that response at all. Okay, So that thinking faculty, when I take in the data which produces a certain emotion, is what we call the manas. Okay? The manas also is one kind of a thing where I have a doubt. A doubt means when I see something, should I pick it up or not? Ratika is asking me to eat food now, should I eat now or later? That possibility. Okay? Sankalpa vikalpatmikaha manaha. This option, which one should I choose? That capacity to assess and emote. This is what we call manas. Okay? Even though it is an object, it is not something which is ordinary. Imagine the capacity of emotions to move you. It is incredible. Okay? But it is actually nothing but thoughts. When you ask somebody, right, that they said, oh, I have been depressed for 1 year. Is it that for 1 year the person has had same thoughts all the time? No. Nobody has same thoughts all the time. Thoughts keep changing. Okay? But those thoughts, why then does it seem to the person that I'm depressed for 1 year? Why?
Because majority of the thoughts were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is there is not only one experience which produces one emotion, but what happens is we use the mind to build on that story. Okay? So we make it, one thing is one thing and you recognize and it produces one emotion, but then we keep on adding the story, which are our own creation, and we keep on making
Seeing it.
the situation bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Right? And that's what keeps on giving us this this feeling of sadness. There are many thoughts, but they are related thoughts and build up thoughts. Right? If I was to just say the object, one thought, and you let it go, it even if you want to hold on to it, it cannot. You cannot hold on to any thought.
Okay. Same
So-
thing about the thoughts of happiness.
Yes,
So isn't it good to go on building thoughts of
It is.
happiness?
if the thoughts of happiness are built on some reality, understanding a few things, okay, then they are wonderful. Okay, but if the thoughts of happiness are built on some totally disconnected story, right? So then
Then
what
we
happens?
find
One day it
collapse.
collapses, right? Because it doesn't correspond to reality. So therefore, we are trying to replace these thoughts which are self-limiting to thoughts which are in keeping with reality, okay, which is much better than what we think, right? So that's why we are trying to get rid of our ignorance and see the world in a light which is really how it is. Okay. So for example, Surya did a meditation at the terrace, and he says that we all suffer from sense of limitation and isolation. Okay, and this is a feeling that we have, that there is a vast universe and I'm alone and I'm so unable to control all the variables, and it is a fact. Okay, then he showed another fact, that how you're connected to everything. It's not something which is based on my fantasy or anything. It's based on some other facts which are so real too. Right? That he says that everything that I do right now is connected to everything else. Okay? Who am I today? My capacities are connected to what the contribution of my parents, their grandparents, what the universe has provided to me in form of opportunities. How am I connected? Okay? So therefore, it is a build-up thought, but a build-up thought is not your imagination. It is in keeping with reality. It's looking at things differently. Okay? So build-up, it depends how you are doing it, right? Otherwise, what happens is that, a madman is creating, exactly, building up a completely different story right, which doesn't correspond to reality, you don't call, and he's laughing all the time, you don't call him a wise person. You call him a mad person, right? Building a castle in the air, right? So here, when Vedanta does that, it's not building a castle in the air. Okay? It's not making you believe that, oh, you are limitless when you are in fact insignificant. That would be crazy. Right? It is really making you more sane by making you see what the realities are. Right? And giving up your confusion about what is what. Right? So therefore, this emotion is something which is in fact nothing but thoughts, but they can, because of that building capacity, they become like huge, right? And if you think I am as good as that, then what happens? Then all the different thoughts, not only, there is only one external stimuli, you are building it up and you are putting your I into it. Then you say, what? I am depressed. When actually they are just nothing but thoughts. Okay? So this is what we call manas. Manas is not an ordinary thing. Right? Don't think that, oh, it's not I, it's not I. It's amazingly powerful. Okay? The second faculty that we have, which is nothing but thoughts, is what we call our buddhi. Manas, then buddhi. Buddhi is the intellect. What is the intellect? Intellect performs a different function. Okay? So you are all professors, right? We all start learning from 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay? Now, are you using your emotive mind? Has your emotion anything to do with learning 2 plus 2 is equal to 4? No. Okay? So there is another faculty of thinking which enables you to capture certain knowledge accurately. Okay? So there
Sorry,
is.
you mentioned that manas already also has a capacity to evaluate. Wouldn't that come as part of intellect then?
No, the sankalpa vikalpatmikaha manaha is manas, but nishchayatmika is buddhi. That capacity then to make decision that I'm going to do this, that comes under buddhi.
Okay.
So two different options are known, that comes under manas. Then the resolve that, okay, now among all these choices, this is what I'm going to do, that comes under buddhi.
Got it.
Intellect is one which knows differentiation.
Intellect is one which knows, in fact, every subject matter that you know is because of your intellect. Okay? So that means there are certain facts. Your mind's capacity to capture those facts is what we call intellect. And that can be in any subject matter. Okay? The mind has a capacity to know so many things which are not exactly, for example, my perception gives me a data that this earth is flat. Okay? But the intellect can be used to what somebody figured out that actually earth is a globe. Okay? And not only figured out, it proved to the others how it is so. Okay? So the intellect can do amazing things. The intellect can, it can first make sense of your perception. Okay? For example, here he says, okay, a capacity for me to capture that this is a glass. Okay? But not only that, the intellect has an amazing capacity to, if I ask you to do inference, induct and deduct, logical thinking. Okay? For example, if I ask people, scientists, for example, how old is the universe? They will say billions of years old. Okay? Has anybody been there? Is it perception? Nobody has been here for billions of years to observe that how old is the universe. Okay? But still, they can with certain amount of certainty say the universe is this many years old. How did they arrive at that?
Some logic.
Logic, right? So this is what we call the buddhi uses not only perception but inference. It's highly sophisticated. And that's why the buddhi can do amazing things.
Vivek buddhi is also.
Okay? And the buddhi can also discriminate. Right? Discriminate between, this is when I'm teaching you, right, that what is the relationship between subject and object, and you are able to understand that. What Mona is saying is Vivek Buddhi, discriminative capacity. Because the experience continues to fool us until the time that we inquire. So that capacity to discriminate is also belonging to intellect. Okay? And also then that nishchayatmika, that when I have certain choices, then I evaluate and I make a decision that this is what I'm going to do. That is also part of buddhi, nishchayatmika. So buddhi has many different functions. Manas has functions of emotion and sankalpa, vikalpa. Is this or is that? Is what I do. Buddhi is capacity to know things in various disciplines, capacity to discriminate, okay, and capacity to make the decision.
So,
Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
it also overrides the manas, right? Now sometimes we don't feel like doing stuff. The emotions are saying, I don't want to, but the intellect makes you do it anyway. You know, certain duties, certain things that you feel are, even things that you know are good for you. Like for example, having a karele ka juice. Emotion will say, "Bahar mein ja, main nahi kar rahi." But the intellect will say, it's good for you, you just go ahead and drink it. You know?
Absolutely.
So,
Radhika, that's a very good thing, that constantly there is something that you need to balance. That the mind can give you some data
Manas
and
is
some
chanchal.
feeling.
Manas
Okay.
is more chanchal.
But
right?
1 second now. Let's not qualify things. We have to be, Vedanta means you have to be very careful in your analysis, right? We don't label things. We just see the realities. Really. Okay. Now, in case of Radhika, what she's saying, that the mind, that there is a Karela juice, right? And it says that, this is awful, this is kadwa, and who wants to have it? But the intellect understands that it is good for me, especially if you are suffering from diabetes and all. So now you have to make a decision. Do I go by what I feel, or do I go by what I understand? Okay. At times we are wise when what? We go with what we understand. At times we go with emotions. It's not that every time we go with what we understand to be right. No. Okay. So the more you are able to use your buddhi, the more you are a deliberate person. Okay. But there is a caution here. Okay. We are not saying that always intellect is superior to emotion. No. Because at times emotions are extremely important in living. Imagine when somebody comes to you and somebody has lost somebody very dear, okay, and that person wants what? Emotional support, and you are going to give them a big lecture. Oh, but life is like that, people come and go. Hey, is this the right thing to do? Not at all.
so the empathy will come here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are
Right.
not categorically saying that all the time the intellect should win over the emotions. We are saying that emotions also have a role to play, which is an extremely important role to play. Because when the person is in emotional need and you talk at an intellectual level, you are not meeting
Correct.
you are not connecting.
And I have an observation
Yes.
that before we analyze a situation intelligently, our emotional self understands that first, and then we reason. Most of the time when I analyze why I felt happy, I find the reasons later. But that feeling of happiness
Yeah.
or feeling of sadness is instant.
Immediate.
The mind or I don't know what, mind or body or self or whatever,
Yeah.
knows in jiffy. It's later at the second level
You begin to analyze.
you begin to understand that what made you happy or what made you sad. So, what is it? I really want to understand. I have experienced it many times.
See, generally what happens is that when there is an external stimuli, the mind processes it very fast, right? And you don't even use your and it responds.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The emotional self
Yeah.
is more powerful
Yes. Yes.
in a minute.
Yes.
You know, the minute I see Preeti, I have already formed my opinion about her, what she is, how she is, etc. Now, I really don't know her, but still, that emotional me knows her, right? So
Yes.
similarly, she knows
Yeah,
me. I mean,
But it's true. But Pallavi, I think one thing is one has to be important. Sometimes that processing is right. Sometimes it may not be right.
May not be
Because
right.
what
It may
happens
happen.
is that we have sometimes so many prejudices, right? That we say, immediately we dismiss people.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
you see
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean?
So maybe
therefore,
if I don't
your
like the pink
intellect-
color, I
yeah,
say I don't
then
like
is it. So
Yeah.
you know that intellect, everything, every function is an important function.
So,
Okay? And we have to learn to use each one effectively. But at the same time understand each of this is not I.
I'll add another very interesting observation from the college itself. So I'm also, apart from teaching the PhD, I'm also a part of the entrepreneurship cell. And in entrepreneurship, when you're trying to take that leap, often there are different theories. So one theory is, if you're going into something, make sure that you're able to do it every day for the rest of your life, which is a very manas way of reacting to something, right? If you're choosing an industry or a startup, you need to really love it. You can do intellectual stimulation, the whole SWOT analysis, and you can do the whole business plan for kingdom come, ultimately, but if you're not happy doing it, how will you succeed? So that's the new thing going on right now, and that I realize it's true. You also have to fulfill your emotional need to a startup.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think it is extremely important, right? We are not giving a message that intellect is always superior to buddhi.
Yeah.
I mean to manas, right? Emotions have their own place.
They have their own place
They
and
have.
they are very, very
They
powerful.
are powerful, absolutely. And the only, in fact, what is-
something like what is called judgment, that's more gut, more emotional than intelligence.
Okay, there again, I think it's a good point that you are making, because there are a lot of people who say that being judgmental is not good. Okay, being judgmental is not good. But then many people ask this question, but how can you not be judgmental, right? As you said, minute you see Preeti, you have some conclusions, right? It's so unconscious, you are not even sitting and thinking.
Absolutely.
Your mind has created some picture of her, okay? And when she sees me or she sees anybody else, it's always the same, right? So now, here we are distinguishing between making a judgment and being judgmental. Very important distinction, okay? Making a judgment is something that is extremely important to live life. Constantly you have to make some judgments. Okay, so for example, when the financial market was collapsing, and you have to judge whether are you going to keep your funds in the same mutual fund or not. You have to judge, you have to make the decision. So judging is not wrong, it's very good. Then what is judgmental? Judgmental is something which is different. Judgmental means that the minute I
Right.
see
Prejudice.
exactly Preeti, I label her, this is how she is. In fact, Preeti is multifaceted. Okay? And she has so many different aspects that she herself may not be able to articulate right now. But I have made one picture and that remains constant, and this is how it is. Okay? This is being judgmental. Because I don't have that openness to reshuffle and redefine things based on facts. Okay? So being judgmental is something which is is not good because you are attributing certain attributes and not even taking
Your own
care,
perception.
right, to examine whether they are valid or not. But judgment is something which is very healthy. Constantly you have to judge. All your decisions are based on certain judgments. Right? So that means that there is one part which is assessing those judgments, that is your intellect. There is one part which is making those judgments, which can be right too. It's not like every judgment is wrong. Okay? But that instantaneous data that is provided, some processing that happens and some emotions take place, that is manas. Okay?
But
So
is it with everyone, people are judgmental or people are judging all the time, or people give chance to think that okay, let's try something else? Is it everyone's nature or?
see,
Depends.
when you for example, when you decide to come to this class, you are judging, right? What am I? I'm spending 2 hours of my day, which is a precious time after work, right? And you have other things to do, I'm sure. Okay, so you have to judge. Everybody judges. Okay, what is the most efficient use of my time? So we are constantly using some judgments. All our decisions are made based on some judgments.
I don't make any judgment. I want to experience it. I don't make any judgment. I want to have a different experience. I'm
You
not-
judge unconsciously, you judge.
Exactly. You judge because you think that this particular class or this particular profession or whatever, it is going to give you this, therefore you do that. Nobody just does things like that only. There is no human being who just does things without knowing why or how. You may not be very conscious about it, but you always have some logic or some idea of what you want out of things. Okay? Even the fact that you are judging that this event will give you a new experience, that is also your judgment.
That's true.
If it doesn't give, then I will be unhappy.
Exactly. Right? So judgment is not something which is wrong, please understand. We are constantly judging. Constant,
It's
in
our
fact,
nature.
but judgmental is whatever judgment that I have is taken as the reality. I am not open, okay, to see. First of all, I am not taken enough care to make that judgment. Secondly, I am not open to revise it, right? In what? In light of some other data. Okay, so this is where we say that this not I is it's a complex inquiry. It's not because all this is involved in mind. All this is taking place in the mind. Right? So manas, and the second faculty is buddhi. The third faculty, yes.
I just wanted to know, you said buddhi, there are 3 things you are saying: to know the things, capacity to discriminate, and third thing?
The
was-
third thing is nishchayatmika, make decisions.
Okay. Capacity to make decisions.
Right? So you said now, should I have snacks now or later? Then I said, this is manas. Then I said, no, if I take it now, even though I would love to, it may affect my class. Right? So let me do it later. This is my decision based on certain facts. This is what we call buddhi. Possibilities, then taking a decision is buddhi. Yeah? So manas and buddhi, highly complex, right? Even though they are all thoughts, they are all very well organized. It's not just a matter of this is not I, this is not I. Yeah, it's so much part of our value system and what we think and what we stand for in terms of, but at the same time, it is not I. Really, it is not I. The third thing, which is another faculty which belongs to our antakarna, and that is what we call chittam. Chittam is memory. Okay? What gives every thought, my life a continuity, every thought comes and goes. I should be ever new. But what happens? There is as though one entity which has what? Lived for 40, 50 years. And what makes it possible is what? Your memory. There is this continuity of Mona, of Pallavi, Dipesh, that is because of the faculty of memory. If we did not remember anything, then what happens? There will be a complete chaos. I am so happy the way you are saying it is chaos, because there are books written in this so-called this new new age literature, where people say that what power of now, only think about now. It is neither possible nor it is desirable. If you have any doubt, ask a person who has Alzheimer. Ask the person who has Alzheimer, who has no recollection of the past and is living in the present. The person is disconnected. The person doesn't even remember how to pick up the spoon and put it in the mouth. The person doesn't remember their own children, his or her own child, spouse, doesn't remember anything. The person is always in the present with no connection to the past. Is it a wise thing? Is it something which is very desirable? Not at all. It is a disaster. Memory is an extremely important function that we have, which makes us live as one entity, right, and gives our life continuity, without which it is not possible. Okay, so this is what the thoughts. What is memory? It is nothing but thoughts. Okay, thoughts was what the object of those thought is what? About the past. Whether it is 5 minutes ago or it is
5 years.
5 years ago. The thoughts are in the present, but the subject is of the past.
Yeah, the first thing, like, who told you that this is paper?
Exactly.
I have been told and I remember.
And she remembers. She retrieves, she sees the form and she retrieves her memory at the same time. Both are going on, right? There is a new thought which is capturing the glass using the eyes. And then there is another thought which is a memory which tells her, hey, this is a glass. Right? So that means this is Antakarana is extraordinary. Yeah.
Such a deep,
Yeah.
don't even realize.
Yeah.
You don't realize
It
it,
just
huh?
happen and
It just exactly. So there is another memory itself can be divided in two parts. One is what we call conscious memory, and the second is the unconscious memory. Okay? Unconscious memory is something that the psychologists talk a lot about. What is the unconscious memory? Okay? Many a times there are some events that happened in our life. Many times, mostly when we were probably young. Okay? When we didn't have enough capacity to
the smell and all that comes under
Huh?
that.
It's your
The smell or anything, that which you are happened and the memory, it's in your memory. Certain remember with the smell, or if you smell something, you remember some past, so those
yeah.
might be with that
Yeah.
unconscious.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah,
I
that
know.
is true. Sometimes it is that you associate things, that's true, it reminds you of something. But at times what we are talking about here is things which are held in the unconscious. In every child's life, okay, whether the event was something which was very big or not, there are certain traumas that belongs to every child. There is no child who is free from it. Why is the child not free from it? Because the brain is too young to assimilate and understand everything accurately. Okay? It's not because the person has been beaten or anything. Simple thing like your parents praising one child makes the other child feel I'm useless. You never said that. Okay? But that just because one child is praised a lot, the other one feels, oh, my parents like only that person and not me. And some of these impressions remain with us for rest of our life. Everything that we come across in the present, what? Gets vitiated, we color it with that certain, I'm no good or I'm not loved. Okay? And then whether this person who is opposite me is actually behaving like that or not, you begin to interpret the situation like that. So this is what we call the unconscious memory.
It could be again good memories also, the same way.
And it can be good memories also. In
Yeah.
fact, there are people, absolutely, we think about problem, but there are people who are actually growing up with a lot of love and a lot of care, and they become people who are really good and contented people. Absolutely. Right? It's not only problem. You can have a that's why parenting is so important.
So on that note, is there some way of equipping your child to start processing earlier, or is it a hopeless case?
Sorry?
You said that children most likely carry impressions
Yes.
from childhood because the mind is too young to process,
Yes.
right? So as a parent, can we do something
Yes.
to help them process
Yes.
earlier?
Yes, you can. In fact, the best thing to do to a child, there are two things, right? One is many times we don't communicate enough with children. Okay? So that we think that they are young. They are very smart. Okay? You can talk to them and they understand many things and you think that they don't understand.
They understand
Okay.
logic.
They understand logic, they understand emotion, they understand everything much more than what we give them credit for. Okay? So therefore, it's extremely important for both the parents to communicate with children. That's what you can do at a young age. Talk to them. Talk to them, it is amazing. Because what I felt, when I was just telling that, oh my God, what heritage you have. When I was young, I was like 6, 7 years old, my grandmother was a poet. She was a Sanskrit scholar and a poet. She would read to me her poem and she would ask my opinion. And I was like a young little child and my grandmother is asking my opinion. Imagine my confidence in myself, right? Because I said, my God, now then I felt that I had to say something intelligent, right? When somebody is asking my opinion. So then you become that person who has that confidence because you're treated like that when you're a child.
It's a Pygmalion effect also, right? The
Yeah.
Pygmalion effect. It's pretty much
Yeah.
that.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, what we call it.
Yeah. There is a second thing that we all do. I think most of the time, the kind of messages we give to our kids are mostly don't do this. It's always this is not good, this is how it is, all the time control. Right? They are hardly brought up with any positive messages. Okay, you're great. See what you have done. It is brilliant. Okay? So many things they do that we just, when they do well, like our teacher used to say, a child comes with very good marks, 98, and the parent says, oh, how much did your friend get? Did you come first? Next time get that.
All that is changing, huh?
But what I'm saying is,
No, seriously, kids nowadays, it's changed a lot.
yeah, but still there is so much pressure on kids to perform also. There is too. There is a lot. And things, parents are changing, that's wonderful. Okay? But this whole thing about what parents can do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So that
We're
means
also growing as parents ourselves.
absolutely. Right? So therefore all this is something which is going to be forming, the part of a memory and that is what we call the unconscious. And that is going to decide the orientation of child for rest of one's life, really. So it's a huge role that the parents have to play in the bringing up of children. Okay. The third is what we call memory, and the fourth is ahankara. Ahankara is the I sense.
What is memory called in
Memory, chittam. Chittam. And the fourth is ahankara. So we will see what is ahankara next time. Okay. Now the whole thing is that all these are nothing but mind, thoughts, right? But they are so well organized that it gives, that of course it gives this sense of rest. So
What is antakarana you said is in English?
Antakarna is the inner instrument that we talk about, and that has four different aspects. One is manas, second is buddhi, third is chittam, and the fourth is ahankara. What is ahankara?
Sorry, what is Sanskrit word? Anankara.
Ahankara.
No, what are the four?
Antakarana.
Antakarana.
Okay.
And it like our students, you know, when we go stop, they show us.
So this is what, in fact, from what time to what time is this class? 5:30 to 7 when we started, little late. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti